Hey, welcome to the Jewish Road Podcast. My name is Matt Davis, and what's your name?
I'm here. I have a lot of names. I'm Ron, just
right.
for purposes today.
Yeah, there we go. And we are here joined with very special guest, Joshua Aaron. Hello, Joshua.
Hello, gentlemen. It's an honor to be a guest with you guys.
Well, it's good to be with you.
Yes, and where are you? Where in the world is Joshua Aaron today?
Joshua Aaron is sitting in his cottage in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania right now.
Looks lovely.
Is it cold outside?
Yes, it is. It just went above freezing. There's a frozen lake about a 2-minute walk away.
There you go.
So
okay. All right.
It's cold enough to have a frozen lake next to.
Mazel tov.
Well, Joshua, we're excited to have you here, especially because today is our 100th episode. Who would have ever thought that we would make it this long? But we wanted to have a very special guest, and we chose you. So thanks for being here on this.
Absolutely. I'm honored.
Yeah. So we are going to talk a little bit about who are you, where did you come from, why are you doing what you're doing? And you don't know this, but you and I had a very tender moment together in Israel. You weren't actually in the car with me, but the music was. And I got to, it was so wonderful after leading tours to Israel for 25 years. And always going with a group and schlepping across the country in a bus. I got to go early, and I had a whole week to myself in Israel. And I rented a convertible, and it was just me driving up the coast, going through Tel Aviv, heading up north, and I'm playing your Zion song, and I'm crying and I'm singing, and it was a beautiful moment. So I don't know if you've ever had moments like that where you're just like, I can't believe I'm here in the land, and I'm praising the Lord, and it's pretty awesome.
I'm honored to be a part of that moment, and that's one of my favorite songs. I did not write that. It's Aaron Shu's song, my best buddy.
Yeah.
And his song has done that to me as well. And I've had moments as far as living in Israel, raising my kids in Israel with my wife, Jeannie. I drive my kids crazy. In the morning, we'd be driving down the mountain from our village called Poria and heading to their school. Their elementary school is on the Jordan River. And the high school, I've got 5 kids, so the high school is on the Sea of Galilee. I'm always saying, do you guys believe where we live? Do you guys believe where we live? And they're like, oh, yes, Abba. And then after a while, I'll hear my kids say, Abba, did you look out the window? Can you believe it? Like it's all, when you live in Orlando, let's just say, and you go to Disney World that first year 5 times, and you never go again. You kind of just forget that you're near something cool. Well, right. Israel is way, way above that. And I always pinch myself, and there's always a soundtrack playing. I try to have a soundtrack playing as I'm traveling to and from my studio in the Jordan Valley and driving my kids to school. It's kind of surreal.
So before you got to Israel, you were not in Israel. You actually lived in America. So tell us just a little bit of the background there and what actually brought you to Israel to begin with.
Yeah, I was born and raised where I'm sitting right now, well, about 20 minutes away from here. My mom was born and raised in Israel. She is from Haifa, Israel, my mother. She was born in January of 1948, just a few months before Israel was reborn in May of 1948.
Just a year before me.
And my grandmother, a year before you, okay. So you're way younger than my mom. You're so young. But yeah, my grandmother fled the Holocaust. Her name was Ruth Epstein or Epstein. Depends on where you're from and how you pronounce it. But my grandmother Ruth Epstein fled from Nazi Germany. It was Poland, then Germany. Now it's Poland again, from a city called Wrocław. Thank God she made it to Israel, gave birth to my mom, several years later. Her brother, my grandmother's brother, Tzvi Epstein, he died in the War of Independence, just a 19-year-old boy. And my grandmother ended up a single mother with a 3-year-old boy and a brand new baby, my mother, Hannah. She decided she couldn't raise the kids by herself, so she gave them both up for adoption. So my mom was adopted into another Jewish home, an Orthodox couple's home, and my uncle Micha, my mom's brother, was adopted into a secular Jewish home. And they grew up, for the first 11 years of their lives, and my mom's life, maybe 10 years, they grew up just 6 miles away from each other, not knowing it. My mother didn't even know she had a brother, but he did. He was 3 years old. So when they were separated, his parents couldn't hide that he was adopted because he knew he had a sister. He knew he was taken from his mother. So he would ask all the time, "Where's my sister? Efo achoti, efo achoti. Where's my sister?" Because his sister was his sister, so he had been looking for her his whole life for 50 years, 50.
Wow.
Never left Israel. He grew up in a kibbutz north of Haifa. He's like a permanent fixture of that kibbutz, retired now, but he like one of the logos of the kibbutz is his silhouette on a tractor in the farm at his kibbutz. But he'd always looked for his sister, and then after 50 years of looking, he got invited to a television show in Tel Aviv called the Mani Pe'er Show, a famous. Actually, back then it was like the Oprah show of Israel. In the 90s, this is 1998. In the 90s, there was only like one, maybe two national channels in Israel. So it was the talk show of the country. So he was invited on the show to come and share his life story and talked about surviving the 6 Days War in 1967 as a paratrooper who landed in Jerusalem to take Jerusalem and set 1973 war, and then being born in Jerusalem in 1945 and moving to Haifa during the War of Independence and talking about this little girl that was his sister that he remembered very vividly, never forgot her, and had been looking for her for 50 years. And the host of the show offered to help him find his sister and his family, and they put a big phone number on the screen, and the host said, "Micha, thank you for coming on the show. If we have anybody that can help you find your family, we're going to put a phone number on the screen." And he looks at the audience and looks at the camera and says, "Hey, if you have any information, please call this number. We're going to help Micha find his family."
Wow.
And then finally he looks to Micha and says, "Micha, thank you for coming on the show. If we find anything, we will let you know. But we do have something for you today. In the audience, we have a special guest. It's your baby sister, Hannah, my mother, who he had surprised out on national television. He flew us out, my mother, myself, my sister were there, and we got to see this reunion firsthand in 1998, 26 years ago. And it was unbelievable for me as a 19, 20-year-old being back in my homeland. I'm a first generation American on my mother's side, third generation on my dad's side, but first generation. So for me, for me getting to go back to this country where my mom is from, my grandmother survived fleeing to, it just became surreal. I felt like roots wrapped around my ankles. I became, bonded with my uncle pretty quick, learned the language. I'm fairly fluent, when you're older. I didn't move to Israel until my 30s. So when you're older, you have to realize you'll never be fluent. But my kids are like natives, but just getting to know my uncle and just falling in love with the land and raising my kids there. It's been incredible journey. And then, I feel like God's called me on a similar trajectory, but spiritual in the regards to seeing the church. And I think you, Matt and Ron, can connect with this message, is to reunite the church in these latter days that have been separated 30, 40,000 denominational times, and separated from the elder brother, and just to see a spiritual family reunion in these last days. I think a lot of us who are feeling God's calling in these last days have that similar calling to do it from whatever our gifting is, and that's what I'm trying to do through music today.
Yeah, that's for sure, because, when I first became a believer 48 years ago, I mean, the whole focus was on, an apologetic that Yeshua is the Messiah. But now, in these days that we're living in now, like you say, it's like, I think some of the best friends that Israel and the Jewish people have are Christians, and we want to help them, be equipped to share the Messiah with them. So we want to bring those together, just like your family came together.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. We've seen it so much. My grandmother, who adopted my mom, was Orthodox, so she my real grandmother, who we found later in life, she had already died. She was a secular Jew, but the grandmother I was raised with was Orthodox. So she would spit on the ground if I said Jesus.
Hmm.
She'd say, Tui, don't say that name in my house. And I remember as a child, I mean, hearing this as a child, because my mom got radically saved the year before I was born. So we didn't care about saying Jesus, or we said Yeshua as well, but we didn't think twice about the pronunciation or whatever. But my grandmother, man, Orthodox grandmother, she would spit, and I would wonder, why is she doing this? Like, why would she spit? What did he ever do to her? And what I found out as I got older, and what you guys, I'm sure, know very well, is that many people claim to be Christians who killed our people, including her parents, my grandmother's parents, in the Holocaust, and they associate Jesus with that. So for me, it's beautiful to see Christians loving Israel and loving the Jewish people in a healthy way, forsaking not the message of Jesus, of course, but
Right.
loving the older brother as they are, as the older brother, and with the reminder that Yeshua taught us never to take a life ever, only to give. His example was to give a life. So true believers would never do such a thing, and to live that example out and to see that unprecedented. I'm 46, but in my lifetime, my mother's lifetime, I don't think we've ever seen this, right? Maybe Ron, I don't want to you already kind of gave your age out here, but in your lifetime, have you seen such a level of Christian love? I know the world is divided, but Christians are more vocal than ever, I think, right?
Yeah, well, I think so. I think, well, even when I first became a believer, all of a sudden I got invited to speak here and speak there, and
Uh-huh.
I couldn't believe how, Christians wanted to hear from me.
Yeah.
And yet these days it's completely different in such a way that I think people are realizing, especially since October 7th, are
Hmm.
realizing that there is something here connected with God's hand upon Israel, and they want to take a stand with the Jewish people. And even in our fellowship that we do on Shabbat up in Wilmore, people are just so focused on being there for the Jewish people and learning. And
Mm.
so that's a great it's a great thing. And your music helps.
Praise God. Music is, and it's not necessarily my music, but just music is I think is the most, if not the top two most powerful methods of getting a message into people's minds and ears and hopefully hearts.
Yeah.
So I've been all in since 2009, um, 15 years now, trying to share that good news through music.
What was the thing that got you from America to say, we're going to make Aliyah and we're going to move the whole family to Israel?
I think the seed was planted officially when I flew into for that reunion in 1998 to meet my mom's brother, my uncle Micha, and watching my mother, who I grew up. She'd tell stories about, like, her story was. It's kind of, she had a hard childhood where her adopted mother adopted her, and then at 5 or 6 years old, my mom's adopted father died in Israel, and my mom was sent back to the orphanage and left there for 5 years in
Wow.
an orphanage in Haifa. So my mom, she was clinging on to some of the sweet people at the orphanage, but the kids, you know, it, uh, she came back. She came to America at 11. Her adopted mother left her from the orphanage and then sent for her years later. And I always joke that she left the promised land, Israel, to the other promised land, to New York City,
Mhm.
of the Jewish people back in those days.
That's my
Uh,
homeland too.
your homeland too, yeah. My mom moved to New York in like 1959 and 11
Yeah.
years old. But what was the question again?
Well,
You're
what
working
what
with an
what what
ADD guy here.
instigated that process of, like, I mean, moving to Israel is not an easy or a quick decision. You're making a
Oh yeah,
commitment to a
so
different way of life for your kids, your family. Like, that's big step.
yeah, so I guess back to the roots part. So it started there. During that reunion in Israel, I just felt like roots were wrapping around my ankles, and it just became once I got back to America, it just became a goal to eventually end up there. And when my wife and I got engaged, I'd bring it up, and wasn't an official thing, but I'd bring it up. We wanted to go on our honeymoon in 2002, February 2002, which is a couple months after, half a year after 9/11. So my wife's like, I'm not flying anywhere.
Right.
So we never went to Israel for our honeymoon. But we eventually, I started singing in 2009, did my first live album, and I'd already gone to Israel for a few months at a time. I'd been going to Israel all the time to visit my family, and it just was a progression. I knew I was called to do it, and I just kept taking steps towards it. Really walking with my wife through it, because my wife and I are both from the same area, but I don't think when she married me, she thought I'd be dragging her across the world. So I had to do it with grace and patience, which isn't one of my virtues. I've grown into having patience in my later years, but we eventually moved there in 2009 to get the kids' citizenship. What I didn't know until about that time was I was an automatic citizen because my mother's Israeli. Not only is she Jewish, she's Israeli. So I didn't have to really make aliyah. I was an Israeli born abroad. So my citizenship was automatic. And so I went to the consulate in New York. They handed me my birth certificate, my documents pretty quick. So what I found was, as an open believer, when we moved there, they couldn't kick me out because Israelis as a whole are quite, especially now, are quite okay with Jewish believers. But there has been and is now a contingent in the Israeli government who hates Messianic Jews, hates Jewish believers who what they call convert to Christianity, which we call complete our Judaism. And they've made it very hard. It's been one of the hardest seasons in the history of Israel for Jewish believers in Jesus to make aliyah, to make the law of return. So because I'm a citizen by birth, I can be as obnoxiously open about my faith and they can't kick me out. So so I could sing about it. I could sing it at the highest falsetto about Yeshua. And that's what I've been doing. But really, it was a progression to know I was supposed to go there. But looking back, I always knew. Back then it was a still small voice, and the voice just got louder and louder as I walked towards God's calling. And that's all I can say, because I remember as a teenager, as a child, I accepted the Lord at 5 years old. But I remember as a young teenager praying all the time, God, I want to know what you want me to do in life. I don't want to just do life. I don't want to just serve you. I want to serve you in the way you want me to serve you. So once I found that way, and I was all in, and I knew I needed to be in Israel to do it. And my wife agreed. We came on the right season, and we did it. And you pay a price when you move to Israel with your kids. Our youngest was born there. Our youngest, Benjamin. He was born on Israel's 70th birthday in 2018 along the hospital along the Sea of Galilee there. Because you pay the price now when my daughter is a sergeant in the worst war in Israel's modern history, or in my lifetime at least. And she's a sergeant in the West Bank, and my son, my oldest of my four boys, is going into the Army August 14th. So it's getting real now. You want to serve the Lord, you want to be a part of Israel, but man, then you start giving up your kids, and it's a whole different world. I feel like a whole different citizen of Israel now that I've given my children to this country, and never prayed more. Never begged other people to pray more, but it's been a journey. Following God makes you still question, hey, was I supposed to move there? Is my daughter supposed to be there? She's only there because I made our family move there. So it makes you ask a lot of questions on that journey of following God. But I do know, and I know my daughter does. And my son, my 17-year-old, he can't wait to join the Army, even now. And I keep telling him, what is the matter with you? I'm okay with you wanting to, but there's something that God, a grace and a chutzpah. I don't know. There's a better word for that. There's something that God gives to our kids to get them through the military, that gives them this excitement that you wouldn't imagine a person would have. Yeah. And my son has that. At least right now he does.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just wondering, you said something a minute ago about, you're able to sing the highest note now, and it made me think back to your concert that you did at the City of David, and saw people just up above and all around, and I'm wondering, are there Jewish non-believers who come to listen to this and enjoy this?
We don't know the numbers of non-believers. We know for sure there were quite a few non-believers. We had over 30 Holocaust survivors there as well,
Wow.
that were brought through a friend of mine, his organization, and because we sang a lot of good old songs
Right.
from the Jewish hymn book as well, the Book of Psalms. So it was a great night, and I knew as we were deciding venues. I almost signed a record deal with a Christian record company, and I just didn't feel good about it. Maybe I was being too Jewish. I just thought I can do this. I don't want it to be skewed towards like there's a Christian CCM,
Yep.
the Christian contemporary music industry, and I didn't want to be in an industry. I just wanted to follow what we're called to do and not get swayed from it, or have a team that is trying to see if I can win a Dove Award, shape the songs, etc. Because none of that stuff is my goal. My goal is just to share the good news to Jews and Gentiles alike. So I just decided that as we're going through different venues, I'm like, nobody's ever sung a live album, and no Jewish messianic album has been in the old city before. So I thought, let's bring this into the old city, to the Tower of David, which isn't really the Tower of David. It's been called that. But really, what I found out after we filmed it, I found out that that's the Praetorium. That's where most scholars are saying now that Yeshua was tried and condemned. So really looking back, singing some of those songs, Salvation is Your Name, and just singing about him, it was powerful. Just at a historic place
You're
where
giving
he
me
was.
goosebumps here.
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it as well. So yeah, that was really an honor, and I'm an all-in kind of guy, and right now I'm trying to push out the things that are distracting me from the all-in. It's always a constant trying to peel away the good things, but that are distracting me from the greater call.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to stay focused and hopefully do my next couple albums here soon.
Yeah.
As well.
What has it been like? And I know that you're not there right now, but we were scheduled to be on tour in Israel October 8th, and that we were going to leave on Sunday. In fact, actually, we were leaving on Saturday to get up there to Chicago and then take a flight and all that. But October 7th changed everything. Changed the landscape of Israel, certainly Gaza, but really the rest of the world has chimed in. What's it been like? We have friend Chaim Mailspin, who's actively serving.
One of my best friends. Oh,
one of the best guys in the world. I had a crazy night in Tiberias with him. It's a whirlwind every time you're with Chaim. But just what is that like to see your friends, your children go off to war? What is it like to even be right now? You're in America, and to see this old hatred that comes up again and again toward our people.
It's unreal. It feels like a nightmare at times. I've got another. Chaim's one of my closest friends in the world. Him and I have spent so many times together where it's like midnight in the Galilee, and I'll call him up like, Chaim, I'm stressed out. Let's go jump in the lake, and he'll just come meet me. We'll go jump in the lake and just talk and pray and just have just smile. And so to see him in the military is, what scares me most about Chaim is he's probably in the whole country, he's probably the most ambitious, willing to give it all guy. And I've seen him time and time. I was in Ethiopia with Chaim. For those who are listening, it's Chaim is he's in the Israeli Defense Forces. He's in Gaza probably right now, in and out like crazy. He's a bomb detector. He has to go in the tunnels. When the war first started, he called me up in a ditch. He's like, "Hey, pray for me." They just started a couple of days after October 7th. Pray for me. A bullet just went past my head. And I'm like, "Oh gosh, Chaim, you should not be telling me this." But of course, I'm praying for him right away. And we have another friend. He's like a little brother to me. His name is Hananya Naftali, and he's an advisor, social media advisor to Netanyahu. And he disappeared for 2 weeks. And yeah, I mean, he's like a little brother to me. So I'm calling his dad when nobody could tell me where he is. I'm thinking, praying it's not the worst. Turns out he was called to duty, but he wasn't allowed to call anybody back because it was super secret, and he's fine. But there was just so many of those moments where, my daughter, right after the war, she was getting on the bus, and I'm over here in the States, and she said she was about to get on the bus, and this is about, she had the weekend off on October 7th, so had a day or two buffer for Israel to get some, because everybody was fearful that it could spread everywhere. If they got into so many different locations in the Gaza border, where else are they coming in? So she's about to get on the bus, and in Tiberias, near where we live, and if you know anything about Israel, like, everybody has served in the army. I didn't, because I didn't officially move until I was 30, and the 26 is the cutoff. I'm 46 now, but she gets in the bus. All the soldiers are on the bus, and a couple parents come on the bus and say, okay, they're just inspecting the bus, and one mother parent said, okay, who's on guard here? And the guy in the front says, I am. She's like, do you have a weapon? He's like, no, I don't have a weapon. It's on the base. She's like, does anybody have a weapon? And he's like, no, our weapons are on the base. And the mother said, okay, off the bus. Like, she overrode the person that was in charge, the authority, the military authority. You're not taking our children back to their base without being having weapons. So they got off the bus, came on the next day, and they got an extra day, and they had a guard that was, because it was all the uber military people who are combat they're just rushing to the border. So my daughter, who is border security or border intelligence, doesn't carry a weapon outside of the base. So all those people were getting on a bus, and I was so grateful for the direct manner of Israeli born and raised parents to help get my daughter off the bus. But my daughter told me, she said this, it's okay, Abba. I was going to be okay. I prayed. She said, I had my pocket knife and some mace. And she called me on the phone and told me this. And I bawled. I cried as she's talking to me. I'm just crying. And I'm thinking, pocket knife and maces will do nothing. First of all, why are you so positive? This is awful. I didn't say any of this. I said none of this. All I did was cry. And I get off the phone. My wife's like, you're not supposed to cry in front of Emma. You're supposed to be a support for her. And I'm like, I could not hold it back because, I was just there a couple months ago to be with her. We did a Hanukkah special in Jerusalem on the second month anniversary of October 7th. But I was remembering in the spring where I would drive her to her base all the time in the week after the weekend if she was able to come home. And there was one, and this will be my last story because I feel like I'm talking too much. Sorry,
you're doing
guys.
Great. Love it.
I drove my daughter I drive her to the base. It's like 2.5-3 hours. Her old base was on the Ramallah border in Bethel, the Bethel from the Bible.
That's right.
That was her base. And so I drive her down, and this particular trip on my way back, she calls me and she says, Abba, my commander told me to call you and let you know I'm okay. And I'm like, all right, well, why did she say that? I'm glad you're okay. Well, there was a whole bus of soldiers that got shot. The whole bus. They all survived, but it was a bloody mess. A terrorist came. We were just on that road. I mean, the bus was 1 hour behind us. They shot up that whole bus on the same road that I took my daughter on. And it just hit. That's when it hit me really close to home. This is before October 7th. This is this past spring, and that's what really, the reality really hit me hard. No, she wasn't going to be on that bus, but it's only by God's grace that she isn't where these things are happening. And then I guess I'll tell you one more story, and that she just told me this last week. We were just thanking God about him keeping her safe. She's a sergeant in the IDF, so she has to be there for her other soldiers, and has girls that she has to counsel and mentor who've lost best friends in Gaza. And, but she was telling me, she's like, Abba, when I filled out the form for the army, my number one choice for base was the Gaza base on the Gaza border. And I'm like, are you serious? She's like, yeah, it was my number one choice. But God obviously had other plans and put her on a base that wasn't even on her list of choices. But God kept her away from
Wow.
there.
Mm.
One of her, when she was in sergeant training, one of her fellow soldiers was one of the few survivors in her platoon, because if this girl, my daughter's friend, wasn't in training to be a sergeant, she would have been killed along with her sisters in arms on October 7th. So it's unbelievable. You feel guilt, that my daughter is fine and safe, but because you want them all to be safe.
Right.
But at the same time, you constantly thank God that He's answered prayers, and He's
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 kept her.
kept them. Why me? God, thank you for blessing me, keeping my daughter safe. But I won't stop praying, and we're just thankful for all those who've been praying for Israel as well.
Well, that's why we have to trust, right? Hine lo yanum velo yisham shomer Yisrael.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
He who keeps Israel neither slumbers and sleeps, and God somehow loves our kids more than that. Even
Amen.
here in Slow Lexington, we've seen some pushback and some protesters, even across the way from our home. There was somebody standing over the last couple of days holding up a sign that says, "One Holocaust doesn't deserve another one." And
Mm.
the narrative that's out there
Wow.
right now is that the IDF and Israel are genocidal maniacs going into Gaza and just crushing, women and children just haphazardly. As a father of a soldier, as an Israeli, and we know enough people who are in the military to know that this is not who they are, just as people, as
No.
humans. But how do you combat that message that's going out?
A lot of this hate is rooted so deep. There's not much you can do. It's like trying to convince an atheist there's a God by making them read the Bible. It has to be something first where they have an open heart, and that's the problem. I think there's so many people with closed hearts and closed minds, not willing to see it from the picture of a people who have been murdered more than almost any other people group in the world throughout history. It, there's a closed mind, mindset that you just can't break through unless they open their hearts and minds. So there isn't much breaking through. I found myself just loving those people. We have a lot of Arab Christian friends who love Israel. Staying close to them and letting people know that Israel is full of Arabs that love Israel. They're proud Arab Israelis. And just helping them see that picture of the reality of Israel, where there is, I don't know, I think it's 1 million or 2 million Arab Israelis, probably even more. I don't know that. I'm just throwing that number out. I know it's a large number, 20%. So that's about right, something like that, maybe more, over 2 million, maybe. So it's unbelievable to if you could see that it's unbelievable in the literal sense, where they don't believe it. Where we have worship sessions and prayer meetings in the Galilee where Jews and Arabs, we don't think about that we're Jews and Arabs. We're just Israel. We're Israelis. We live in Israel. We love the Lord. So in the Christian community, that's where it's the picture is so beautiful, because Yeshua is at the center. In the Christian Arab community and the Jewish believer community, you don't feel that at all. It's amazing how much unity there is when we're brought together and just live together, instead of trying to focus on our differences. In the believing community, it's the commonality is Yeshua, and that heals everything.
You have several albums. You have a lot of songs. I know that there's some times where I'll put something out there into the universe, whether it's a teaching or a study or a message, and you feel the delight of God. Has there ever been what is one of those songs for you that you finished writing, you sang it, you were in a certain place, like where you just
Oh wow.
you knew,
Okay.
like, hey, God, this is why you put me here, right? Like, two most
Yeah,
important days in your life are when you realize that God has put you here and what you're supposed to do with that. But what is there a song that you've been a
for
part of
sure.
that just
For sure.
speaks to you?
There's a song I wrote called "You Are Holy," and
Mm,
Hmm.
might not be the best. It's not the world's best composition,
I
but
I love it.
I was in the Philippines, and it was early in my career. Maybe it was 2011, I say early in my career, I started in 2009, like going all in on music, and my first album in 2009. 2011, I was invited to the Philippines, and I did an outreach to share the gospel in General Santos City in the South, and I've been there a few times since. And I was in a squatter's village, sleeping on a dirt floor, and then the next day we flew into Manila, and they gave me this place to stay at this apartment that was closed for like half a year. It was very dingy, but it was a bed, and I was excited to not sleep on a dirt floor. And
Right.
I got in there, I was just so tired, flying thousands of miles away from home, and I lay down to go to sleep, and immediately I feel these little things crawling on me. There was bugs in the bed, and I remember I got out of the bed. It was just this weird, a weird part. That's the weird part of the story. Well, I got out of the bed really quick, and I just started brushing these whatever this was I was feeling off of me, and took a shower, and then just sat in the wooden chair. Decided I'm not sleeping. There's no way I'm sleeping on that bed. I don't want to sleep on a wooden floor. So I brushed off a wooden chair in the corner, and I remember being angry that it happened. And just for a brief moment, like, God, I'm across this world. I just shared the gospel. 800 people came up for salvation. I was with this dynamic pastor who came up afterwards. So I'm not this great evangelist preacher. I shared through song, and it was special. It was a beautiful, harvest. But I was just that next day. I just thought I wanted to sleep, and I was just angry. And the moment, like almost as quickly as I was angry at God, I felt this conviction, like, I don't want to say God I didn't hear anything. I might say it. Some people might say they heard something, but I'm very sensitive to not say God said anything else. I know for sure. But it was like, who do you think you were talking to? I felt like this in my heart. And instantly I felt like this weight, this beautiful heaviness, like God is here. I know he's everywhere, but I've never felt that before in my life. And I just grabbed my guitar, and I was thinking about my wife and kids and realizing, God, I'm here. You're here. You called me here. Please protect my family. May I follow you everywhere. I don't care if there's bugs. I don't care if people are shooting at me. If you want me to be there, I'm going to be there. And I just started singing this chorus, You are holy. There is no one else like you. I sang it in Hebrew and English back and forth. And then I opened up. I was crying the whole time. I'm not a crier. I don't cry for much. Until October 7th, I don't cry for much.
Yeah.
And I remember crying that whole night, and then reading Joshua 24:15, choose this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, and I was thinking as I was reading that verse, like, yes, Lord, me and my house, we're going to serve you. I don't care where. And that's when I wrote that song that night, in just a bucket full of tears. And a time with God that I've never had really like that since. So I wasn't even going to record it. I just thought this is a song between me and you, Lord. But when I came home, I made my wife. My wife's so shy and sweet. She didn't think she could sing it good enough. I'm like, no, we have to sing this together as a family. So I convinced her to sing it, and we released it. And so glad we did, because now it's one of those songs that even when I sing it live, every once in a while I'll feel like I'm there a decade earlier in the Philippines somewhere when I wrote it.
Yeah, that song won a music award too.
Yeah, an independent songwriter award. Yeah, I guess it did, didn't it? Way back. Yeah.
The other song that I mentioned in the very beginning is Aaron Schu's song. It's Zion, and there's always that moment for us in the bus, and we make the ascent up to Jerusalem, and we're reading the Psalms of Ascent, and we used to play, Paul Wilbur and Jerusalem Arise, all these things. But sorry, Paul, but now we play that song Zion. It's so
great.
filled with scripture. It's filled with prophecy. What has that song done, and what has it meant to the masses that have heard it?
It's meant a lot to the masses. It's funny because when I travel and sing, there's always a few songs I have to sing, or else I'll get yelled at by if there's any fans of mine in the audience. But when I sing Zion, they're all just like, they all know all the words. They're singing as loud as they can. So it's been a banner song of biblical precedence. Now in modern Christian, that's why I love Aaron. He's my best friend. So we're together. I'm not just biased, but he is. If you listen to Christian music today, it's needed. I know there's a lot of songs about God chasing after me, or about, I feel alone, and people need those songs, but that's pretty much the majority of Christian CCM, it's all about, having that hope, yes, but it's more of a personal, American type of a mind struggle, But Aaron he wrote this old school biblical biblically precedented
Mm,
song that isn't written today. People don't write. I could think, one of Aaron's good buddies is Michael Card. Um,
Mm,
I told him it's like an El Shaddai.
yeah.
When I heard El Shaddai, I listened to it a couple of years ago for the first time after a while, and I just wept when I heard Michael Card's version, because I know he wrote it, and when you hear it from the songwriter, you know, um, though your people could not see what Messiah ought to be. I'm like, whoa, like he's singing from the literal interpretation of the Bible, not trying to apply the Israel onto the church, and that's what Aaron did. Aaron just took the Bible, and Aaron always says, he said, I read the Bible for the first time after many years, and I realized that when God said Israel, he meant Israel, you know. And then when he was writing that song, his wife even said, Sarah, she's like, "There's no way you wrote this by yourself, Aaron." He's like, "Yeah, I don't know, but it's just it's just the Bible. It all just came together." And yeah, I've seen it impact so many people. And one story of impact was singing it at my congregation. Him and I sang it. Of course, he led it, and in Haifa. And one of my friends, her husband's the pastor, Avi Shalom, and she had moved to Israel, 30 years prior, when she was a teenager, like maybe 19. And she knew God called her to Israel, but she said, when I heard that song, I'd never heard it explained better in my life in a
hmm
song on God bringing us back, and why. Um, and as she was a daughter of Zion, and that was my favorite testimony I've heard from Aaron's song, Zion.
Yeah, it just mixed music and culture and history all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's Bible. It's
yeah.
Bible.
Well, Joshua, congratulations on being one of the newest messianic artists that my dad, the old man, actually loves.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
I mentioned Paul Wilbur, but we go back. Like Marty Getz is a good family friend of
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah. Good friend too.
We know
Yeah.
the Chernoffs and all
Yep.
of those people going back. But so I thought
Well,
my,
yep.
my dad was locked into the trifecta
Yeah.
of messianic
The
worship.
staple.
The staple, right? Like this is who I grew up
Yeah.
with, and but then all of a sudden he came, he saw and heard your songs, and it was just like, I like this guy. I'm all, what? And he's not like 70 years old. This is fantastic. So-
Well, listen, Ron, I am with you. Like my two favorite singers of all time are Joel Chernoff. My two favorite they happen to be Jewish, Joel Chernoff and Keith Green.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
So I'm the youngest of five kids. So my older siblings listen to the older stuff. So I got pulled in, and Melody Green is one of my close friends now. And I love talking about the old stuff. So I was a songwriter with Integrity Music for 4 years, and we do songwriter retreats. And listen, I've heard God use Christian music to bless so many people, but I found myself in the woods listening to taking strolls. It was like a writer's retreat, listening to Shlomo Karlabach, like
Yeah.
some old Jewish stuff, and Joel Chernoff and Keith Green, because I didn't want to lose sight on my roots and what I'm called to sing about. And I think that's something, we're not trying to be the Jewish Bethel. I don't think we need to do that, or the Jewish Chris Tomlin, although a lot of my friends call me that. I have a friend in Nashville calls me Jew Tom, instead of Chris Tomlin, Jew. But I think there's something, comes full circle. You watch it in before our eyes. 80s music is cool now,
right.
and that's 40 some years ago. Music. So I love accordion stuff. I love old stuff. It's going to come full circle.
Don't.
I think the accordion is the most lost instrument.
Oh no! Stop! No,
All right.
Joshua.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's
He
go
plays
around. Let's
the
do it.
accordion. He plays the
Yeah,
accordion.
no.
Oh, yeah.
Send me some videos of him playing. I'm in the market for an accordion player.
Well, hey, let's talk about that, because because he likes you, and I've loved you for a long time. But we said, like, let's have Joshua come out. Would Joshua come out to Lexington? And you said yes. You're coming to Lexington next month, March 22nd. It's a Friday night, and it's at Emmanuel Baptist Church at the Tates Creek campus. And man, if you got to be careful. I'm just going to warn you right now because this might be a blessing and a curse. He'll come up and play accordion with you if you want. If you're still looking for an accordion,
That'd be awesome.
We just did some klezmer, some Jewish music for Hanukkah. I play clarinet.
Really?
Yeah.
Send me some videos. I'll have to screen this first, Ron. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it could ruin your
That sounds
reputation.
awesome.
Yeah. I don't think we need to send you the video. I can help screen for you. But hey.
Well, yeah, March 22nd.
Yeah.
Friday night, we're going to do Shabbat right. Let's do it.
There you
Yes.
go.
Let's
love
do it.
that.
I can't wait.
And so you're bringing the crew. Aaron's going to be there. Yaron. Tell
my
us,
gosh.
what are we going to get when somebody comes? What are they?
That's my trifecta.
Yes.
If I can have Aaron, Yaron, it's magical. So Yaron is born and raised Israel. He got radically saved as a young adult on the beaches of Tel Aviv, and he loves the Lord. He is a Middle Eastern professional instrumentalist and musicologist.
Mm-hmm.
Currently studying for his doctorate. But he plays all these Middle Eastern instruments: the oud, the saz, the lira, the lyre, or lira, as we say. He plays ancient Western instruments like the hurdy-gurdy from England and Ireland. So you'll hear a lot of that stuff. You'll hear us go back in time a little bit. Old meets new. And Aaron he's the dear big brother of Christian music. The guy who sang "My Hope Is in You, My Savior, My God," but who loves Israel. He's one of the few. I can talk on one hand that really stood for Israel since October 7th. You watch the Devil Wars, you don't see a lot of people talking about Israel, but Aaron Schuster's all in to the detriment of his career. He doesn't care. He wants to love God and love the God of Israel and love Israel. With reckless abandon, and that's what I love about him. It's gonna be a great night, and we're all like brothers. I call us the Yaron crew. Joshua, Aaron, and Yaron. Yeah. We just did a concert tour in the Netherlands a month or two ago, and that was awesome. So we're looking forward to having time with you guys in Lexington, Kentucky. Huh?
Yeah.
March 2nd, you said?
March 22nd, Friday, March 22nd.
March 22nd.
Yeah.
Awesome. We can't wait.
We'll send you a text message. Make sure that you get all the details right, that you'll show up at the right time and place.
No, it's on my calendar. If it's on my calendar,
it's all good.
It's done. I'll be there. I promise.
Yeah. Hey, Joshua, thanks for jumping on with us and sharing your story. It's not just about the music. We love you as a brother, as an Israeli, and for your family. We're praying for all of them, for your daughter, and for the peace of Yerushalayim. Would you close this out? Would you just give us the Aaronic benediction and just close this episode out for us?
Yes. Thank you, God, so much for all these listeners. Well, thank you for everybody who's listening right now. I think you've called them not to just live life for themselves, but to live life for you, God. May they seek first your kingdom and your righteousness, and the other things that they want will come second, will be added. God, I just pray that you just reinstill a calling on everyone who's listening today, Lord, and raise them up, especially in these last days as we await the great and soon coming return of our Mashiach, our Messiah, Yeshua. And God, I pray that you bless them along the way, that may they never leave this earth by any disaster or any sickness, but live a long and healthy life. And I pray this prayer as you taught us, Father, in Numbers chapter 6. And I believe your Son, our Savior, prayed this as he ascended into heaven. Yivrechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ye'er Adonai panav elecha, v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha, v'yasim lechem, shalom, B'Shem shel Yeshua, Sar Shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you, be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you his shalom. In the name of the Prince of Peace, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Shalom. Thanks, Joshua.
Yeah.
Thanks, brothers.
Thank you. Beautiful.